Hey there, my name is DM Joel, and I'm going to discuss the new D&D campaign called Vecna Eve of Ruin. In this campaign, this is a brand new one from Wizards of the Coast, and they use it as a 50th anniversary of D&D as a way to kind of celebrate. And I watched some podcasts, I listened to some things, and what the creators of this adventure said was that they wanted to find a villain, an evil guy that they had for a long time that they could use as a wide for in a wide sweeping adventure. But I think we can all kind of realize that Vecna is really popular now because of Stranger Things, and I think they're trying to cash in on that with the new crop of kids coming up and playing. Really, including myself. I did not start playing D&D until like 2017, and I've been DMing ever since, and we played the Stranger Things starter pack with my sons, and I have since created all kinds of my own campaigns. I found some old classic campaigns from D&D that I've used, and when I saw this was coming out, I had to get my hands on it, and I was able to. And I've seen some reaction videos from DMs talking about, but one thing I haven't seen is someone talking about the locations that are in this book. And what I'm going to do real quick is discuss the story in a snapshot and then the location. So if you are ever considering playing this, please stop watching because there will be some spoilers and you don't want to know the locations. But if you're not going to, if you think you're going to be DMing like I'm going to, go ahead and keep watching and we'll continue. So this adventure is called the Vecna Eve of Ruin. And what we see is that this is an epic battle between Vecna and Cass. And I read the first couple of chapters, including the backstory. And essentially, what we have is Vecna was an evil lich, and Cass was his his number one man, his guy in charge of all his warriors and all that nonsense. Well, like most stories, Cass got sick and tired of following Vecna and wanted to destroy him. So Cass betrayed him, fought him, and attempted to kill him. And as Vecna was dying, Cass was kind of like cast out into the multiverse by Vecna. Vecna dies. There's only little parts of him left. His eye in his hand, which will be a very big part of this story and part of DM lore overall. Cass was kind of sent out and turned into a vampire, and he's been working ever since to betray and kill Vecna one more time. While throughout this story, Vecna has his own plans, and Vecna is planning to take over the multiverse. He doesn't want to ruin or destroy any worlds. He wants to recreate the worlds in his own image and be the supreme ruler over all. And that is the entirety of D&D. So basically how this is set up was that if the players fail, most of the bad guys in D&D, and we'll see some in this story, including Vecna, are going to kind of take over the multiverse. So everything we know about D&D could end if our players are unsuccessful. And there's kind of like a choose your own adventure aspect where we understand what happens if the players fail at any stage. So, but what I kind of picked up of when I was reading the story, looking at the locations, is that this is kind of like a love story for all the big locations in D&D world. You don't have just one map. This isn't just one location. This story jumps across the entire multiverse. And what I've seen some questions online was, well, what about the new D&D rules? All this new change that we heard coming. And from what I've seen, the story and the way the dynamics takes place, it's all within the 5e rules that we know and we are familiar with. So you do not have to worry about changing up all your rules. So if you play a strictly online game, you'll be able to use those same dynamics and the same rules as you're used to. So feel confident about that. So let's just kind of get to it. So we kind of discussed the plot a little bit, and our players start at level 10. So if you have a party and they're not quite at level 10, this book has a way for you to chart them up to level 10. But if you have an experienced set of players and they want kind of like create new characters for this story, you can go ahead and have them create in your zero session all their characters. Just level them up to level 10. So like it'll take a little bit, but that's why you have a zero session to just discuss all of this. Um, so I'm going to present some things here. So our first chapter takes place in Neverwinter, and Neverwinter is a place in D&D that never really gets its own campaign, gets its own adventures, but things are included in there. And as you can see, Neverwinter is such a big sprawling place that it's easy to have exciting things happen in there. This Neverwinter kind of takes place and they kind of discover that there's a cult of Vecna happening. And immediately they're kind of sucked down into like a dungeon crawl essentially, and they spend the rest of the chapter in this dungeon crawl. Chapter 2 takes place in the city of doors at Sigil, and Sigil is a, as you can see, this big spherical design place that is a kind of like at the center of the universe. And we start to learn some characters we've seen before, like Loth, and we were introduced to our kind of a secret kind of place. So the third chapter takes place in the astral plane. And this is a place where I am not really familiar with. I haven't had my characters go there, but the astral plane is this very metaphysical realm that kind of twists and turns. I think we can kind of think of it as in the Doctor Strange, where he can go to this mystical place and magic happens there and kind of weird effects happen. So, and this is a place that has had some adventures that have had its own kind of treatment there. But the majority of this chapter takes place on a spell jamming ship called the Lambert Zenith, and you have to find a thing there. So, you can kind of make it into a ship aspect where they have to control some things in there, but there's a character there that they have to confront and they have to kind of help find a piece. There are side stories interwoven into this campaign. I got to tell you, I found the book and it's over 500 pages long, and that's pretty massive. And so you have a lot of studying to do. All right. The fourth, and there is another place that it could, the fourth chapter, I'm sorry, takes place in the world of Eberron. And there are giant mechanical beasts in this island that are long since destroyed and long since disbanded. But Eberron's been used in different locations for D&D for years. And it's a whole other kind of world that they get transported to. So it's a whole different planet. Just like the astral plane is something completely different. So your characters aren't going to be like traveling for days and on a cart. Now that's not going to be something they're going to have to worry about. They're going to have to worry about whole different aspects. There's one part in this story where your characters are transported and they are in coffins and they have to figure out how to get out of these coffins. And there's another character that are trapped. And so like, this is kind of how it is interwoven in there. And they have to kind of attack these giant things. Okay. This next one, I think we're all going to know, we're all going to love. Yes. Chapter 5 takes place in Barovia and actually at the Death House. And if anyone has ever played the Death House, you know our main character in that series is Strahd. And you do face Strahd during this. And they have to find the pieces in there. And I ran the Death House as a one-shot for Halloween. And when I saw that it was in here, I was like, oh my God, my players already know this. They're going to be bored, but it's not. There's so much more that they've added into this that wasn't in the original Death House that even if they've played it, they won't expect some things. So as a DM, you can be like, oh, here we go to the Death House, and kind of lull them into that false sense of security and then just bam him. It's going to be super cool. All right, this next part, chapter 6, takes place in the world of Kryn. And again, this is a whole other world. And they're the majority of this chapter takes place at this gigantic tree that they have to maneuver. So like think about they're going from a house with those kind of dynamics to wilderness, and they have to kind of plan around from there. And they'll be going around to this vault where, yeah, we're learning that there's the new kind of evil villain that they have to encounter. So that's another place. Chapter 8. Oh, and then Kryn was well known for the Dragonlance series. So if you've played the Dragonlance series, you're used to this planet and you're used to this world. And so another kind of ode to D&D, they kind of throw it back. Hey, we know our fans love all this place. Now, I love this next place. I love it because I just ran a campaign. I just ran an adventure about this guy. They're going to Earth and they're going to a place called the Tomb of Wayward Souls. And if that sounds familiar, it's because it is based off the Tomb of Horrors. And if your players have played the Tomb of Horrors and they hear the name Asarerak, they may get spooked because of how awful this Lilith is. Now, while the characters are at this place kind of fighting this monster, they're not going to encounter Asarerak. They're going to encounter a lesser version of him, kind of like the Timu version of him. But it is going to be kind of spooky. So again, they go from this gigantic tree to an abandoned tomb that there it's now it's going to be another dungeon crawl, and they're going to have to kind of adapt to that. I love this because Asarerak was such an evil character to fight, and the Tomb of Horrors was just such an unfair adventure. Now, those of you that have played it, you know that it's just nonstop battling and puzzles, and everything's meant to kill them. Well, welcome back to your doom. Okay. Chapter 9, Chapter 8, I'm sorry, takes place in Avernus, and it's really Tiamat is there. And so Tiamat's that five-headed dragon. It's kind of like our big introduction to Dungeons and Dragons. Think of like the comic or the TV show and the book. We first meet their characters and they face Tiamat. And yeah, they're in Tiamat's area, but they're barely mentioned. They mostly spend, the characters are going to spend the majority of their time at a casino called the Red Belvedere. And within that casino, they're going to have to fight a champion of Tiamat, and then they're going to have to kind of infiltrate a lair. But so just keep going back to all these different worlds and kind of these names that players know, DMs are going to know for years. Now we're going to Tiamat, and it's so funny because it's barely mentioned, but it's there. Chapter 9 is going back to the sigil, so back to the big sphere area, and they're going to the chaotic plane of the pandemonium. And they're going to spend some time in this plane. So there's the sigil. They're going to spend time there. And we're getting towards the end of our story. We're getting to kind of like the big reveal, what the story has been building up to. And I'm not going to give that away. I want you as DM to do that. But we're going to be heading back there. So they get transported back there to the sigil where some things are going to happen. Then they're going to go back to a different part of the pandemonium called the Ruinous Sea. And anyone that has played Out of the Abyss, which my characters loved it, we spent an entire calendar year in there. And it's just a giant underground dungeon crawl. And my players hadn't seen the sun for a full calendar year. And we finally escaped. And now they're going to have to go back. Now, but at least they know the name Lolth and how evil she is. And she is actually participating with one of our characters, and they're going to have to face her. So again, we're going from a casino, essentially a fun place that they have to infiltrate, back to the Underdark. And another kind of ode to D&D lore of these big campaigns that have been popular for 30 years. So now they're going to have to face Lolth, and we're eventually heading toward the end. So that's chapter 10. In chapter 11, we see we're sticking where we are. We're staying in the pandemonium, and now we're going to a place called the Cave of Shadow Reflection. And this is where we kind of have our BBEG battle, and we kind of see if the characters are going to succeed or not. So that is the end. But those are the 10 big areas that our characters are going to have to fight in. And I hope that this very short video was helpful to you as a DM to decide if you want to get this adventure or not. I love it. I have just, like I said, I read through the backstory introduction and the first couple chapters, and I can't wait to kind of go all the way through it and start setting this up to run it. So if you have any questions, any comments, please hit me up. Let me know. I'll do my best to answer anything. I hope I didn't mess anything up. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you, and happy playing.